Good Lion has teamed up with a small family business to bring you a topical that's been proven to detoxify the brain of heavy metals, poisons, and other toxins, all of which when detoxed make way for optimal brain function. ARII is an herbal formulation for anyone needing to detox, and specifically for anyone with autism. ARII has not only been freeing those with autism, but also those taking care of loved ones with it. Caretakers can breathe again, and autistic behaviors dissipate. This formulation is an herbal blend which is produced in small batches, containing only the cleanest and most vibrant ingredients. Because the individual ingredients are uniquely extracted, gently and naturally by the sun, they can be absorbed directly into the bloodstream within seconds, via the soles of the feet or the navel. This method avoids the digestive tract and has proven more effective than pills or capsules. This is a two-step program requiring a 12-day detox first, which helps eliminate any heavy metals and toxins accumulated in the brain. This is then followed by autism support and is recommended to use for as long as results are desired. The formulation contains no chemicals, CO2, or solvents, ensuring that it's pure and natural. Are you treating with ARII?
Welcome to the Love and Action Show with me, Alpa Soni, and today I'm really excited to have two wonderful souls that I've been meaning to have on my show for quite some time. And I say this because I was on their show, the Spiritual Raw Show, I think almost a year and a half ago. And I'm one of these people that want guests on my show, but sometimes I kind of hide and forget. So it is my honor and pleasure to have both of you, April and Jay. How are you?
How are you, sister?
Thank you so much. It's our honor to be here. And it's so fantastic to finally reconnect with you. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, I've been following your journey and you've been both doing incredible things. And just for my audience who may not know of you, which I doubt because you've really been doing some combined spiritually raw stuff as a couple. And I find that really inspiring because, you know, it's kind of different out there and you've gone from strength to strength personally in terms of, you know, where your channel has progressed and where you are now. So I'd like to start off with you, April, because let's start off with your journey and how you started your channel and yeah.
Well, that's a little bit of a loaded question, so I'll try to keep it short. But Jay and I, we go back actually 20 years. And this is the second phase of our life. The first phase was the first 10 years. Our background, for those that don't know, we're financial service professionals. We had a very large insurance agency. And we also caught the tail end of the mortgage run, which was great, right? And so that was really, really fun. But at the same time, we had been in insurance for about 10 years and pretty burnout. It was financially really great. It was a great run, but it was very monotonous. It was not, you know, it's unfulfilling on many levels. Financially great, but, you know, it pretty much stopped there. Spiritually, not at all. Literally burnout just got us. And we decided one day, we woke up and we were like, listen, I don't want to do this anymore. And he said, I don't want to do it anymore. And Chase said, well, if you really mean it, I'm going to go and sell the business. And I'm like, oh, well, go ahead. You don't just sell an insurance agency. It takes the whole process, right? And he came back like 3 days later. And he's like, well, you got your wish. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I sold the business and we have to be out in 2 weeks. And I'm like, that's just impossible. There's just no way. And it was real. He sold it and we literally had to have audits and everything out in 2 weeks. And we were
out of a job.
And we were out of a job. We were out of business, literally. And we had zero plan because no one ever expected it to happen so quickly. So we took some time off and decompressed and just toss some things around. And this was really when it was like maybe the first or second year of YouTube. Social media was just starting to come into the forefront.
So around 2010, right?
It was 2010.
Right around then, yep.
Yep, it was 2010. And neither of us had we had zero social media experience. We had literally, other than a computer program, we had no computer experience. And then we decided to jump into social media, which was totally insane. We had no media experience, so we decided to start a radio show, which was totally insane. And that was the first launch, actually, of Spiritually Raw, was in 2010.
Okay, so it was on the subject of the whole spiritual category.
Yeah. And the reason that we started it was really for our own purpose, Alpa, was we started Spiritually Raw to get the questions that we wanted personally answered. So we had no experience in media. We had absolutely no experience in interviewing or anything, radio atmosphere. So we said, my God, well, what are we going to do? We're not experts in anything. We were experts in the financial services industry. So we figured, well, you know what? Only way we can become an expert in anything is if we start asking a bunch of questions. So that's what we did. We based the show, which is exactly the same format, just interviewing experts and asking the questions that we wanted the answers to.
Wow. And the transition, though, because I share a very similar story. I come from financial services as a broker. And just before this whole scamdemic started, I was about 8 months into setting up my own business in Mayfair in London. So it was like insurance, life business, and it's just a different sort of whole corporate camaraderie. And I remember when I started the whole social media thing in this movement, it was like, ugh. And we were just saying this before the show, I was just like, oh, it can be overwhelming. But you, 10 years on, so you started your radio show. So did you both start it together?
We did. We launched it together, and then I'll just condense this part real short. Once we ironed out the kinks, that took a couple months and a lot of money. We spent a lot of money trying to figure it out. Luckily, we were able to figure it out quickly. And once we did figure it out and snap the pieces together, it literally exploded. It took off very, very quickly. And we ran the show for about 18 months. And we started monetizing the show right away. And people started asking us, how are we making money? So we were telling everybody how we were doing it. And then one day we said, well, why are we telling everybody? Why don't we just start a consulting business? And then we started a consulting business. And then the consulting business got so busy that we had to put the show on the back burner. And we put it on, we literally went on hiatus for 7.5 years. And then relaunched it in 2018.
Wow. So in terms of coming to this point then, to 2020, you were quite well equipped with how to be in the social media kind of fraternity and evolve accordingly, because it's been a heavy 2.5 years. And on your channel, you have a variety of guests. And what I love about it is that you are neutral and you listen and are very open to hearing all perspectives. And that aligns with the Love in Action show, because, it's a very open, honest, heart-centered approach, which is energetically what I feel. And I think that's really important at the moment, because as you both know, when we're in the public eye, we're susceptible to a lot of criticism, be it good, constructive, what have you. But inviting a whole host of guests from different backgrounds, I think somebody may get nuggets of wisdom. So the whole spiritually raw, I'll ask you this, Jay, the whole concept of, the spiritually raw subject and the guests that you have on your show, did it happen very organically when we started the movement, coming into the pandemic? How was it for you by the time we got to this and the people that you were inviting in on your show?
So when we came back, Spiritually Raw phase 2, if you would, I didn't want to do it.
I was going to say that he was anti, he was against it.
And I was like, I don't want to do it. I'm like, I love the consult. It's my, it's what I do. Right. So I was consulting and making really good money. I don't want to do it again. And I was like, whatever. Anyway, long story short, April was like, let's do it. So next thing you know, I'm on a camera. And so So we started off, I didn't know any of this because like what we were interviewing on before was a lot of the traditional spiritual, you know, psychics, all the stuff like that, right? And all of a sudden there's this whole truth movement coming on, right? So April got connected with this. Next thing you know, I just show up. I mean, it's literally like one thing. I'm not kidding you. It was like I showed up, and then we have guests like I think one of the first ones ever. Gene Decaux was like one of the first guests.
Yeah, you had him quite a bit on your show in the beginning.
I'm like, what are they even saying right here? I'm like, I'm trying to process. I'm like, oh my God, what is this?
See, I was already down the rabbit hole.
She was down the rabbit hole, and I'm like, all right, whatever. So I just showed up. I'm listening. So I'm like, all right, let me get in a rhythm. So I was like, let me get in. I just started talking. Next thing you know, it was that, and then it went to another one. It happened very organically. So we didn't go in and be like, oh, I didn't even get the concept of the truther movement or anything about that at all, because frankly, I wasn't even interested in it. But again, April got us there, so she gets the credit. Yeah. You know,
I was already going down the rabbit hole at that point. And every time I would try to be like, Jay, you know, you got to see this. He's very like removed from that. You know, he's like, right. I don't, you want to do that? That's fine. But I'm like, no, this is something we need to really talk about and bring, you know, I think this is the perfect opportunity for us to relaunch the show. So he really was against it, but I was really, really into it. I really wanted to do it. So he really was more or less like, well, okay, if I do it, she'll get off my back.
That's actually my next question, because where were you both at in terms of your, you know, the label that they call it now is from the beginning is the truthers or the awakened ones. I tend to kind of not align with any of these labels, but where were you, Jay and April, simultaneously? April, you mentioned you already were down the rabbit hole, but for me, coming from the same background as you, and then now having no social media experience, and then screaming from my lungs about, you know, the whole thing started off with the Save the Children thing, and it was just like a bull in the china shop for me. That's what it was. Very different from the corporate world.
So, you know, I mean, it was just so, you know, because as you know, it was a whirlwind, right? Like right from go. So that's what happened. And so you just got all caught up in all of that. And you met some of the coolest people with just, you know, whether you agreed or disagreed was not even the point of it all. It was really the fact that there was just so much passion and love and energy towards whatever. And it was just, you could feel the vibes, right? And everybody was just really, you know, never in my life had I ever seen anything like, you know, we reported on stuff like, you know, but never like a real movement, like a proper movement, right? So this was like a proper movement. So I'm like seeing this for the first time, like, holy shit. I'm like, these people really, they're really passionate about their belief systems, right? And they would come on, and then it was wild. So I guess, you know, you would get caught up, but it was great. It was, for me, you know, I've always taken this position as like, listen, if you think you're Jesus Christ, God bless you, whatever gets you the next day. You know what I mean? Seriously, whatever gets you to the next day. And if it gets you to wake up and do whatever, good on you. You know what I mean? So for me, I'm always like that. I'm like, look, as long as you're not hurting anybody, do your thing. You know, have fun with it.
You know, it's funny, when we first launched the show in 2010, we were interviewing on topics that back then seemed absolutely loony. Like, you know, I'm the reincarnation of Mother Mary or John the Baptist, or I'm this alien, or I'm that Arcturian. And for Jay and I at the time, it was amusement. It was truly like entertainment 101 all the way. So we were in it for the fun of it because it was just so bizarro.
Well, the curiosity, right? Like it's
absolute curiosity.
We would never have explored otherwise if we were just stuck in our own lane. And then some of these things, Gene Decode being a prime example, right?
Yes. And when we relaunched the show, exactly, we were now in a phase of all of our lives that the things that we were talking about before, which were prophetic, biblical prophecies and so on, we're now living in it. So within a short period of time, right, we went from talking about this stuff that seemed so Looney Tunes to us to now being like, wow, we're actually evolving, and
like we're reporting on current events.
Right,
you know
we're talking about current events now that are happening.
Yeah, versus then it was like, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
All right.
It was speculative back then, so we were kind of discerning and analyzing the information and all the research that we've done. If you remember, like, you know, do your research, trust the plan. And we all got kind of, you know, carried away with it. But I believe for a very necessary purpose, because you said something important there, April, that all those things, the curiosity, the sort of the excitement, not excitement, the pressure, the anxiety, all combined in one, and talking about situations that we are now witnessing unfolding now. And it's very important that I say this I said this on the days of the Charlie Freaks show, that I started with both the Charlies. And once after post the election, I realized, oh my God, we've all been not played, but this is a process. This is the unraveling and revealing times. And how can you tell people? They need to be shown. People need to have their own power to be able to trust themselves and trust information by the way that they're programmed. Does that make sense? So us all going out like loonies and saying, you know, this is what's happening. They're like, what authority are you suddenly coming from your mortgage background? And you're crazy. So we all experience that. But leads me to my next question. Like 2.5 years, almost 3 years now, coming up in March next month. God, time has really flown, hasn't it? 3 years. Let's start off with you, April. It's been so many stages in this movement, in my opinion. Now, almost 3 years in, as a collective consciousness, where, in your view, are we now?
Well, and from my view, I think Earth is awesome. I absolutely do not buy into that Earth is a prison planet. I think it's a prison planet if you believe it's a prison planet. I think it's a magical planet if you create it to be a magical planet. So I can't say I have that. I'm not of the mindset of like, oh my God, I can't wait to get out of here and I'm never coming back, blah, 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 blah. Right? I fucking love it. I mean,
to be fair, I've been there. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, well, we all have been there at one point, right? But then you realize, wait a minute, what am I trying to escape? Really? What am I trying to escape? Am I escaping really ultimately myself? So what do I have to do to fix myself, to make myself happy so I can see the beauty that this earth plane has to offer? And it's absolutely beyond comprehension when you allow that possibility to exist. And when you get away from all the negative, because like you said, there were a lot of phases, right? We went through so many phases: crying, upset, depression, happy. You're like a whirlwind of emotions going through when you find out all these things that are going on, whether it's speculative or it's real. You know, that's opinion, right? But when you start to uncover things that you're like, it takes you through an emotional roller coaster. But then you have to come back to center and realize, and I'm going to give you a perfect example, Alpa. When the election happened and it did not turn out the way that we all thought it was going to turn out, that was a huge eye opener. It was also a major turning point. And we said, you know what? Let's think about this for a second. Let's go back and remember when Barack Obama was in office. And then let's think about our personal life. How did Barack Obama and his cabinet personally affect our lives? It didn't. No. We were very prosperous. We were very, very happy. Life was great. So who was in that seat at the time of the presidency did not affect us on a personal level. So what we had done was we allowed, I'm speaking for Jay and I, we allowed the thought of somebody who stands behind this pulpit or presidency to literally control our future. Because everything was riding on, if this man gets into office, X, Y, and Z is going to happen. And if this man doesn't get into office, X, Y, and Z is going to happen. Yeah, that's insanity. To allow someone else or something else to control your destiny and your future, that usually never works out well for anyone.
I agree.
Right?
I agree, yeah.
So when you have that come to Jesus moment, you realize, does it really matter?
Yeah.
Does it really matter? Because it's only up to us. No one else can create our happiness. Jay can't create my happiness, my parents, my family. It's internally up to me to create my own happiness. And when I learn how to develop that and create my own happiness, then I can share with the world. Then anyone is really a force to be reckoned with. you're unstoppable.
I love that, April. That is so important. Everyone, just want to thank everyone for being here. April's just said something really, a subject that's close to my heart, because when we were all like put at the forefront of this movement, we chose to use our voices and talk about all of this. And then there was so many people, like you said, that got depressed, and the merry-go-rounds that we've had. But essentially, if we look at it through the spiritual lens, what is it saying is that all of us have been programmed subliminally to many extents, depending on where we are in our own journey. I always say people meet you as far as they've met themselves. We come from all different backgrounds. We come from various wounding or traumas and all the varieties of things that happen to us in our life, in the journey of our life. And then suddenly, whoa, we're here. And there's this kind of pseudo egotistical spirituality of the awakened ones, because we now know this information, and then boom, it doesn't come true. And then we're faced with kind of like egg on our face with our friends and family. Oh yeah, Trump was coming into power. Really, it was a very important and necessary lesson for all of us to kind of take a step back and observe and realize, favorite saying on all my shows, to have the realize that we've all been played. Because what is this journey about is to reclaim our own power. Mm-hmm. So therefore, then you can get so encompassed in all the narratives and the hopiums and the dates and all of these things that we went through. It was around the beginning of 2021. I noticed there and then that this is, oh my God, we need to take a back seat. So it's our own journey, a journey of self-discovery. And I think I agree with you, April. There's a lot to look forward to, especially when you're standing in your own power. So what about you, Jay?
So we stopped reporting on a lot of that right after 2021. We took a backseat, and one of the reasons was, and it's just interesting, like even though we're not in the who's having this meeting or that meeting or whatever, blah blah blah, we get texts all the time. It's like, hey, get your money out of the bank, or Nassar Gassar is happening today, or did you get this today? And I'm thinking to myself, okay, all right. Number one, I'm really glad I'm out of it. I really am. And number two, and I love the people. I have a lot of good friends in it, but I'm like, look, they're still from a collective consciousness, Alpa. I really feel like, a lot of people are still, I feel like there's a lot of reversal that happened there. I feel like people went backwards, because I think what happened was they were on a break of like breaking through. And I think whatever you want to call it, dark forces, cabal, whatever the phrase of the day is that I think then this stuff happened. People got played, okay, my opinion, and all of a sudden it took them backwards. And now it's hard for them to now let go of the possibility that millions of dollars for all my friends is coming tomorrow. I won't have any debt tomorrow. I don't have to work for anything today. It's hard to let go of that now. And so I think that what happened is I think it really hit the collective consciousness pretty hard. So I don't, as optimistic as I am, I feel like I'm a pretty optimistic guy. I still feel like, yeah, it did. And then you have these people that are like, oh, well, listen, 83% of the collective is there. We only need 2.5. I'm like, how do you even know that number? Like, you know what I mean? People like have this, like, that's the better question is like, how do you know the percentage? Like, who told you that, right? So I think we got work to do. I think we got a lot of work to do. I think it's going to take people like what you're doing who are just vocal about it. And I was like, look, I went there, but I had to take a back seat because I saw this not ending well for people. And I think more and more people that actually have the courage to go in that direction, I think then those people that watch us, then we'll start to get back to par on the collective consciousness. But presently, I feel like it's taking a back seat.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of, it's like the rupture phase, I call it, and this is a really not the best analogy that I give, but imagine you have a really pussy spot, right? And it's just popped, right? And then it just goes everywhere. And it's a gross example, but like I'm just being raw here. And then there's bacteria, and then there's all sorts of other things that happen as a result. So metaphorically, I feel as a collective consciousness, people will meet you as far as they've met themselves. One, it's the worst I told you so in the history of our times. And people have a lot of what I call the egocentric wars, because like I said earlier, we are all coming from our own journey, our own script, our own things that we've gone through in our own lives. And I personally think vulnerability is key. and honoring your energy, and being able to feel the energies that we are going through as a collective consciousness, and realize that this really is about neutralizing this bipolarity that we have in terms of the ego battles. So, you know, that's something. And I say this because I think I sit mildly on the spectrum, and I've been studying, as you know, I showed the autism product that I launched. And for me, it was a journey of self-discovery. Yeah, thank you. But it just, it's truly God's will, you know, and it's about like the journey of self-discovery, realizing through my own nephew, actually, that I could sit mildly on the spectrum. But where I forgot the point. I was saying, look, see, prime example. What was I saying?
It happens to me all the time.
Especially when I mention it. But anyway, I'll remember. But we are all here. That's it. Yeah, we're all here on our own journey, learning. And it's important to pay attention to the energy that we are feeling collectively, and to be able to take that back seat and say, right, that this is not, but continue evolving and doing the inner work yourself.
Exactly.
Right?
You hit the nail on the head. You absolutely hit the nail on the head, Alpa. It's understanding and respecting other people's thoughts and ideas, but not getting yourself so sucked into it that you lose sight of your own happiness, that you lose sight of your own health, that you lose sight of your own personal success. And I feel a lot of that drama, because that is what it is. A lot of it is drama. People take that on, and then they're like, well, I can't manifest. I'm on this, that, and the other. I can't wait to leave here. I'm depressed. I'm this, I'm that. It's because you're allowing that drama to infuse your life, and you literally become one with it. You have to understand it if you want to research it, but stay detached from it. The problem is that many people are so attached to it that it becomes their life.
So, you know, you want to think about the way of, like, with the collective consciousness.
The key is detachment.
Is to break the collective consciousness. So, like, there's individuality at play here too. You know what I mean? So listen, if the rest of the collective consciousness are a big part of whatever, I mean, there's so much reliance, and like, it's good to do this together. It really is. It's very good. But if it doesn't work out that way, it doesn't work out that way at the moment. Do your own thing. Don't wait for the rest of the group to play right properly. So you still have to move forward. And I think that's where I think that if people could start to get out of that trap, like, okay, well, all right, we're almost there. Let me get this group over here. Start doing your own shit. You know what I mean? Start getting your own stuff together. Get your own thing. I mean, swim out to your own ship instead of waiting for it to come out to you. And, you know, whatever analogies you can think of there. But I think when people start doing that, I mean, actions speak louder than words. They really do. So I think if you see somebody start to move, then somebody else will move, and then it starts moving. And if you could show that, hey, these possibilities exist, and, you know, I don't know, like, we don't necessarily, okay, so I don't necessarily know where we come from. I just know we're here on this planet Earth, and we can speculate to death. I think it's good because it keeps us in a job, right? So it's like, you know, we got an endless job here, right? But I don't know if we'll ever find out, but I don't really care because I'm in this moment. And so I think that if we can, the more and more I start to take that on, it's like, live in this present, enjoy this magical, this concept of 3D that people talk about it, if you would, it disappears and it magically appears into my version of 5D. Because what I'm doing is I'm celebrating my life at that moment. You see what I mean?
And so you've said both of you have said two really important fundamental points there. One, the path of detachment, which is the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, the Gita Sar. And in the Vedas, this is what they kind of, the key message is Maya, to lose Maya. And we are here to learn the trajectory of our own soul's mission. And the power of now, the present, the power of being present. That's the second point that you both raised, that it's about being in the moment and knowing that right now in this given moment, everything is all that I have. And I admire that with both of you because, again, the key to vulnerability is know thyself and to say, right, well, actually, I'm struggling here. And whoa, this is just too overwhelming, which is something that I found in this movement, especially being someone from my community. Jay, you and I come from the same ethnic background. And for me, it was just very, very overwhelming to be in this so-called truther movement and then hearing about things and learning about these conspiratorial narratives that I knew nothing about before. And so one, it was like, what the hell is this? What kind of craziness have I become a part of? One, and two, the kind of the moral compass that we had saying, right, this isn't right. That I don't care what people say. I am going to talk about this, and I can discern, and this is not speculation. We can see what the nefarious agenda was because there was enough information to say so. So we've evolved, all of us, then in our own trials and tribulations, and again bringing it back to the egocentric wars that I have been observing. And the key point that you're both saying is not to get too attached to it, right?
No, not at all.
Exactly.
You know, like
that is it in a nutshell.
We share with everybody, look, you know what, handle life as just like a regular show, entertainment purposes only. That's it. You know, if it fits into your plans, if who you're watching, every moment, entertainment purposes only. Like, you really care that a president of a country is having a board meeting with an ambassador of this country, and how is that affecting you at that moment?
That's
and,
what you have to really ask yourself.
And really,
how is that situation
like,
affecting your life personally?
It's like people know more about, you know, politics, and it was amazing. I'm like, wow, that's pretty wild. But it's
a great civics lesson.
It's a great civics lesson, but people get so caught up in like, there's a meeting on this on 1 o'clock, and wait for it. And next thing you know, people drop it. They stop. So I think that's a lot of that. That's the head trip. So that's what I always tell people. I'm like, you know, people call me, they're like, hey, you know, what do you think about this? I'm like, entertainment purposes only is always my philosophy. You know what I mean? I'm not saying this shit doesn't happen. I'm not, but I am saying you have to look at it pragmatically also, because you can't
consume it.
You can't consume that, because if you got people that rely upon you to take care of life, you know, if you're the income earner, or you take care of whatever kids, family, pets, whatever that is for you, then I think then you have a responsibility to be on the top of your game. You do. And so you can't let this stuff just muddy what these other people are needing you for. You know what I mean? So just be responsible. I look at it from that perspective.
And I think
exactly. Yeah.
I think the one thing that people are really forgetting, Alpa, is so simplistic. Start celebrating life.
Yeah.
When you start celebrating life, I promise you, life will celebrate you back.
Yeah, definitely. Because people get so encompassed in the emotional side of things, and then the so-called spiritual side of things. And then there's this kind of hero complex that you're in this movement. You shouldn't be earning money. You shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be doing that. Who put out the rules and the laws in this movement? First of all, we all came in with our eyes shut and didn't know. And then you get the kind of, again, egocentric wars. Well, I've been awake for so many years, and I've blah, blah, blah. And all of this sort of happens. So it just goes to show you as a collective where we've evolved, where we're at. And that's when you can be, April, the right attitude is just to be able to take a back seat and celebrate life and enjoy yourself. Because I certainly forgot to in the earliest stage, because you're like, right, we need to save those children. It consumed me, and being empathic in nature. Yeah, and it consumed me, but to the detriment of my health as well. And I reflect back onto my journey. And again, this is a journey for all of us individually, and where it's going to take us, whether we grow, we progress, we regress, that's down to us and the choices and the decisions that we make. And again, if you're sensitive to the energies and you don't know how to kind of level it up or balance it, then, you know, the only thing for me is, I say, is learn as much as you can, and honor where you are at a emotional level and mental level and a spiritual level. But for both of you, then from 2020 to where you are now, you've evolved in so many things. Not only just your channel, but it's taken you both on a journey, right? So let's share some of that, and from 2020 to where you're at now.
It's been a phenomenal journey. There is one thing, if you don't mind, I want to go back and talk about something you brought up. When Jay and I first started the channel, right from the get-go, the second time as well, we knew we needed to monetize the show, because we had no idea what was going to ultimately happen. We had no idea that the whole YouTube, but intuitively we knew we need to have backup and start monetizing the show outside of, we never monetized it through YouTube. And we had always done it through the membership site. That was very radical at the time, to charge people to go watch your videos. So we had gotten so much feedback for a very, very, very long time about who do you think you are?
Yeah.
So-and-so doesn't charge, and right? But people are still joining the membership. So they'd be saying one thing but joining at the same time. But here's the whole thing. When you think about this, Alpa, from a spiritual and energetic point of view, and people used to leave the nastiest comments all over our social media. And I'm going to talk about that in a second too. But when you think about this from a spiritual and energetic point of view, how disconnected that is from the truth of what spirit, God consciousness, spirit consciousness, divine consciousness, whatever anyone connects to it, ultimately wants for you. They want you prosperous. They want you abundant. They want you healthy. They want you happy. It's the dark forces that want you fat, dumb, and broke, right?
And in lack-based consciousness, lack-based mentality.
Lack-based consciousness. So all of that negativity where people are saying, oh, you're not spiritual and you're not God and God doesn't want, that is the opposite. That is dark forces shackling your mind and your body and your belief system to make you believe that creating abundance and prosperity is a negative.
Exactly.
Creating abundance and prosperity is a positive. And that is what the creators, God, whatever you want to connect with, that's what they want for you. They want you to be prosperous.
And you know, to tell you, it's like, and it's what's sad to see is like you see a lot of great messengers, communicators out there that are really trying to get their message out. But for whatever their infinite wisdom, they feel embarrassed and they feel like they have to explain why they are talking about a product, why they're selling
money.
Oh, well, you know, I don't normally sell this, or I would never talk about this. You're like, why do you even have to say that? Like, why? Like, how is that even a thing? Like, you're embarrassing yourself by doing that, right? And you are. And I think that
I would get emails from people. I still get them every now and again. They would be so nasty and so arrogant about it. How dare you? You're not this, you're not. And not only that, but they would pick apart the way I dress, the way I look, the way I talk, the way I laugh, the way I this, and that will really tear you down, number one. And then finally, Jay was like, what are you doing? I'm like, because I used to respond back to people. Like I felt like I had to defend myself, which is totally insane. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, but so-and-so just said this. He's like, you're out of your mind. He goes, first of all, delete that shit immediately, because
from your mind as well.
Right, exactly. The second that you feed back into these comments, you are fueling that flame. So
that devil consciousness.
Well, you know,
100%.
The reality of this is this, and I hope people are watching this, because we say this in our show. If you're one of those people that go on other people's and say, "Oh, is this another infomercial?" or "Why are you charging?" You have got to know your consciousness is on the dark side, because any light, loving God person would say, "Hey, congratulations for taking the steps and showing us ways that we can prosper and have a great life." But if you're the one who says, "Oh, I thought this channel's turning into an infomercial," or "I can't believe you're selling," I think you should go back to hell where you belong. And then I also, seriously, because it's a consciousness, and it's not a good thing. I think that if we can, you asked about what we learned over this journey. Mine is to, when I see a sister and brother out there that's a way shower, that's doing some amazing stuff, they're making a lot of money, they're providing well for their family, they're living the life. I'm like,
congrats.
Show me that. I'm like, celebrate that. If we can't celebrate when someone is successful, we are not living in a high consciousness place. We're living in lower things. If you're like, they're just in it for the money. Of course we're in it for the money. It's like we're in it for the food. We're in it for the water. It's part of the rules of engagement. We live here. You know what I mean?
And that's the other thing too. This dark energy force that has also been programmed in many people's mind. They want you to believe that being prosperous is a negative. And It's so far from a negative. When you want to help the world and you want to share your wealth, you cannot share your wealth when you're broke.
When you have no wealth.
Let's be very, very clear.
And why is there not that same resentment to the idols that they've worshipped that are all abundant and that they aspire to be like, or whether in the music industry or actors pre finding out what this whole agenda was about and who's what in which space? It's this lack-based in poverty consciousness where the cabal have also subliminally, well, they're responsible for that because we are not taught to, one, trust ourselves, two, not to be abundant. And then there's that resentment, jealousy, and that kind of energy that has permeated throughout humanity. And also it's the way that we are now bringing in a solution for everything that we thought was the way forward. Now it's like providing alternative media, new trains of thought to get people to keep, to question everything. And that's what we're here to do, unlearn everything that we were taught. And we people, the Wayshows, the light workers, the truthers, whatever label you want to give it, are here. And I say it in a brave context that, okay, we found out all this information. Where do we go now? What do we want to do? So we want to provide solutions. Yeah. Being solution focused. Before then, it was just the information and geopolitical stuff and the elections and the dead and the children and the protests. And we're all going to have this great reveal. Boom. It didn't. We had to learn and find out for ourselves. Now, though, okay, in this journey, you have an audience. So what's one of the number one moans in humanity is the lack of health. Why? The pharmaceutical fraternities haven't exactly educated us, and the education fraternities have certainly not. We've all gone downhill. And I say that generically. So you're providing a solution. And guess what? If you don't align with that, what do we have? We have a choice, right? We have the choice of who we listen to. And that's the beauty about this, because you're providing solutions. And, you both have done really, really well in inspiring. And that's the word I get. It's inspirational. Jay, you and I had a chat the other day, and Monica and I both were saying, wow, that was just right. It's kind of got us into a bit of a structure. And we'll talk about that and mention some of the things that we've been speaking about. But what impact are you having on your fellow brothers and sisters? And what's the intention,
Yeah, we're hopefully we hope and pray we have an impact. I mean, we look at life very pragmatically. And again, we're looking at the moment and we are taking the philosophy of we're just not going to talk about it. We're just going to show it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Actions always speak louder than words. And that's what we're going to do. We're not going to just talk about shit anymore. We're just going to just do it and then say, look, hey, we did it. There was a way. What do you think? And that's really pretty much how we're doing it. And we did words, very little to say anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Very little to say Alpa anymore. There's just things to show and say, like, if I can, and for us, we have been talking a lot, and we coined this phrase called the 5D economy, 5-dimensional economy, which is becoming abundant by only helping other people become abundant. So right. We're really trying to put that.
That's true wealth.
And that is really true wealth, because we've had it's been the greatest time of my life in it that, working with people, seeing them become abundant. You know what I mean? And I love it.
That is priceless.
That's priceless to see, like, wow, like they're seeing it. They're getting it. And I'm like, wow, this is good. This is what it's like. There's no reason to escape here. We've got, I feel like I'm getting in a rhythm with people. I feel like people are starting to share that and see that it's a real thing that they can share with people. We don't have to put this guard up all the time and be like, oh, that's only for me to know. You know what I mean? There's things that we need to know. So we're constantly going to strive for that. I mean, every moment, every day, if you would, is always going to be a journey. And I think I prefer it that way. So it doesn't get bored or monotonous. But I think every time if we can start to take a look at like service to others, but service to others in a way where you really make an impact in their life to the point where their life changes. You know what I mean? That's the thing.
You have to first service yourself.
But you got to service yourself
first.
You
have to have service to yourself first. You cannot serve others when you don't feel good and you're not doing well yourself. You have to take care of yourself first. And I think, Alpa, if you tear it all apart, you're like, well, why are we really even here? What's the whole point? And here's what I figured out. Here's what I boiled it all down to. Why are we here? To create our own happiness.
Yeah, and to learn to self-actualize and know thyself. You know, in my life in particular, to serve others was something that I grew up with that programming, because coming from the Indian background, it's kind of very conservative in many ways, and my parents weren't that bad post 20, but before 20 I wasn't even allowed to talk to a guy. You know, it was very strict and conservative, and it was all about values, the family, you know, the family life, and the way yeah, there's the separation between men and women. Like my brother was allowed to do whatever he wanted, but I wasn't. You know, there was a lot of that. So but I don't think there's anything wrong with some of that as well. Some of the way I was brought up, you know, with what we say is sanskars in Sanskrit, values, a level of decorum, how we treat our elders, how we respectfully conduct ourselves in life. But we can all be guilty of not putting thyself first, because we don't know, subconsciously, at a subconscious level, it's not something that we were taught, and it depends on what kind of family dynamic you grow up in. It's always to serve others. But you know, I think, folks, everyone that's listening, it's a really important message that April said there, is that, you know, serving yourself, and of course being abundant in your mentality and your levels of consciousness, and not then succumbing to those egocentric wars and being affected, and honoring the space, April, that you were in, sort of like, oh my God, this is hurtful, or reading this. And then, you know, this brings me to sort of the next kind of topic of both of you working with each other as a divine masculine and divine feminine, you know, how you both have embraced that, working together all the time, doing your several businesses, and then being able to have and exert that energy in the public domain. I'm sure it has its like different energies, right?
I'll take this question.
I knew it.
Okay, Alpa, let's see. Where should we start?
She's not there, for God's sakes. It's a show.
For starters,
Therapist today.
For starters, darling.
I love it though. This is why it's spiritually the love in action show with the spiritually raw couple.
It really is, absolutely. For those of you that are listening, this, where Jay and I are at now, did not happen overnight. Okay, this has been 20 years in the making, and 20 years of a lot of struggles. You know, it's not always been roses. When we met, it was very magical. It was literally like right out of a fairy tale. And but when if anyone is in a twin flame relationship, they will tell you it is the most difficult relationship. It is not like you're not skipping through the fairy fields, you know, holding hands for 20, 50, 100 years. It is a progress. And either you come down to two things. It's either A, you're going to kill one another, or B, you're going to figure it the fuck out. Right? There's no in between.
Yeah.
And so either you love each other enough because you don't want to ever leave one another, because you're one soul that's been split, right? So you either literally figure it out, or sometimes you can't figure it out and you have to part your ways, and that's devastating beyond comprehension. So we have done so much personal work. We have been through the relationship ringer of a lifetime, and it was a long process, but I could say to you today, it was worth it, because now we're in a totally different space. And when you look back and you realize, my God, you know, so much of it could have been avoided, you know, no question about it. But that is like, you have to literally look in the mirror, and instead of pointing the finger constantly at the other person, look at what you've done to me, and what, you know, it's you. If I had been more self-aware, a lot of it could have been avoided, because Jay's a much more balanced person than I am. I am a hot-blooded Italian all the way through, you know, so my fire can get lit very, very, very quickly. So had I self-reflected a lot more and said, you know what, wait a minute, maybe it was me, not saying that he's perfect. Don't get me wrong, people.
I'll go with yours.
Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of on his side too.
You're on the right track.
Right. But if I had been like, you know what, geez, maybe I am the cause of a lot of this. Maybe it was me that had,
doing good.
You know, these issues that caused this.
Yes.
A lot of it could have been avoided, but I had such a strong ego, and I also have a lot of masculine, or had a lot of masculine energy, right? So, you know, single for a long time, you're successful, and you're like, I am woman, hear me roar, right? So you take that into a relationship with a very strong alpha male, you're gonna butt heads. And so you have to just learn how to step back and reflect, and then realize, you know what? The world's not out to get you.
Powerful, April. And I am so, it's not spiritually raw right now, it's spiritually vulnerable. And this is because the subject of twin flames, I'm in one too myself, story for another time, but I 100%, if I could say 1 billion% align with everything you have said. And it is one of the most testing connections that you will ever face. Honeymoon period, and then for both of you being in the public eye, and then living together, working together, and having, but the twin flame connection, I think, is, there's so many various contexts to the journey of a twin flame. There's so much out there, which is like the same for the subject of narcissism and empath. You know, there's just, we can kind of Google, go, as I say, go Google crazy when you start reading up about these things, and you think, well, this aligns to me, and then you'll read something, so oh my God, I don't want to read that because it's like the hard part. But it's a very valuable, and thank you for sharing that, because that hits home to something for me personally, you know, and which is where vulnerability in these times is to have that self-awareness about the self without, you know, my mom always says, Alpa, you point one finger, 3 point back at you, right? You know, you look at that, you're pointing one, and she does that. I love some of her sayings, but they ring home, and it's true. It's about looking at yourself, looking at what you are allowing, where you need to grow, what's happening, where you are being dimmed, minimized, all these kind of things. And then it's all about the essential spiritual growth.
You know? Yeah.
Jay, go on. What's your perspective on this? I love this show. It's great.
Well, you know, it's definitely wow. So yeah, you know, like when we met, we were both independently, had our own businesses, so we both made our own money. So, you know what I mean? So we met as business people. So that was a good thing, because we understood the dynamic of how our relationship. So it wasn't like a couple that said, oh, hey, let's try this thing on. You know what I mean? We were like, she's making her money, I'm making my own money. We met.
We went into business together.
We went into business as business people together. So that was good. And then, but then you have that boom, you have two very strong, you know, people running their own sales organizations and, you know, coming together, and it's like, okay, who's gonna drive this train? So there was a lot of that. You know, I think it's, you know, for me, it's, you know, a lot of what April said is that just really trying to work through all that stuff. But I think when you for people that are in that relationship, my experience after 20 years is that when you start to push back on that other person, you're pushing back on the overall growth of not only yourself, and I don't sound love and light here, but this is real true. You impact yourself many ways. Financially, you do, because you're not at peak performance together. You know, spiritually you do, because you're not at peak performance together. So I think if you can take a look at it as like, I started to take a look at it as like, all right, well, you know what? Let me just, when we're on, you know what I mean? And I get that. So there's moments, and we've captured those moments enough times that keep us here 20 years later. Right. Mm-hmm. So we know that. And then when we're off. So it's like, okay, well, how do we get back on? And it was like, always like, you know, just, you know, let me just let's start taking a step back. So my perspective was to take a step back and just kind of let things play out. And then we just to look at things differently. I mean, it's not an easy road. It's we spend more time together than we don't. And that's different than a lot of relationships. You know, they go to work and they give each other a kiss in the morning, and like 10, 12 hours later, they're back in, they give each other a kiss, and they're out for 8 hours. So there might be only 2 to 3 hours that they see each other. We pretty much
24/7.
24/7, and it's been like that. So
The other thing too is I'll share two things too. The first thing is if you're in a relationship and you work together, the first thing you absolutely have to do is create a dividing line and don't cross it. You have your specialties, they have their specialties, and don't cross into their lane. And when they cross into your lane, that's when havoc starts. So when you know what your role is and they know what their role is, and you stay out of my lane and I'll stay out of your lane, you're going to have harmony.
That's important.
You come into my lane and that is going to come right in.
It's
That's
true.
number one.
Yeah.
And number two, our dynamic is very interesting, Alpa, in that when we are spiritually connected, we literally can light the world on fire. When we are disconnected, the whole world comes crumbling down. And that includes the bills, our house, our income, everything. It literally comes to a crashing halt.
That's the twin flame dynamic, because
that is the twin flame dynamic.
Both parties need to understand that once you're in this connection, it's a service to one, not just themselves and their own spiritual growth, but it's for the wider good for humanity.
Yes.
And when you don't know that and you go into this label of, oh, I'm in a twin flame and I'm with the love of my life and we're going to go and skip into the sunset together, that's not what it is, because everything is coming up to be healed. So all the good, bad, and ugly that you've encountered in your own personal lives prior to meeting, and then there you have this euphoria when you meet, and then suddenly it's like, right, crap, I have got inner work to do. And when those inner work energies don't kind of match or sort of synchronize, hell breaks loose. So again, even in this situation with what we're going through as a collective consciousness, the battle of egos. So when we are not aligned to that, I can see that there's only one thing that's happening, is where we've met ourselves and what healing is needed to do. So it comes from respect, learning to self-respect yourself first. What you will take, what you won't. And folks, this is great, because I never kind of plan what I'm going to talk about on the show. I just go with the title, and of course it's spiritually raw, but I think this is spiritually raw and vulnerable, because people like yourselves that have started this journey, and we're going to talk a little bit in shortly about where it's led you to now and the amazing things that you're doing, and I'm a part of that, is that being inspired, Jay, what you said about being happy for people, being inspired, being vulnerable, and being able to talk about it the way you have, April, which is great. And there will only be two things that happen when people get triggered by anyone that they see. And it's okay to have an opinion. You don't have to love and like everybody. That's a load of bullshit as well. I get that, because, you know, you should be able to be strong and tough enough to be, to articulate yourself in a way which is strong, firm, but also respectful. Right. And have views that are respectful, and to be able to, it's okay to disagree, and to sort of not share the same view as something. I'm not all about, you know, we all have to be loving and this, that, the other. We're all,
that's BS.
Right. We have to understand our shadow side as well. I get that. But of course, it's one thing being something on the public eye, and then one thing being behind the scenes, what you are. So if that is a mismatch, that individual, you know, we have to have that self-awareness to say, right, what am I doing here? Because there's this big disparity between myself and the outside and what's really going in the inside. So again, we say in the Vedas, the Sanskrit terminology is that it's where we've met ourselves to self-liberate our soul and self-actualize to who we are meant to be at a soul level. And you will meet people that are there to do one thing, and that's to teach you. If there's a lesson that you haven't learned, you're going to learn it, you know, through other people. What I find interesting, now that we're on the subject of the relationships, is that you get a lot of relationship gurus that are not in relationships, got a huge following, right? How are you going to learn about yourself if you're not in a relationship?
Right. Exactly.
So, but look, that's some brilliant stuff there, just from the heart, and the energy is just amazing. But on some things that I'm a part of with both of you, and I'm very grateful. For it, Catherine Edwards has been amazing, along with what I've been doing in my journey of self-discovery with REDOX as a topical. Came across ASEA, which you both are involved with as well. Now, I learned about it in April. If you heard the show that I did with Dr. Silverman, April 2021, right? And that was just by myself. I just saw something on one of these channels, I can't even remember who, no one actually came up and introduced it to me. So I was just reading about it, and they said it's this spiritual drink. And I remember thinking, I want to try that. And it decalcifies the pineal gland and all of that. And then I forgot about it. And then thanks to Catherine, I am where I am now. My father started taking it a week ago.
Wow.
Jay, if you remember, I told you I wish I could convince him to do this. Yeah. And it's going to be the hardest part for me because, you know, he's quite a stubborn man. And having gone through his stages of his health, being diagnosed with cancer in October, we are no, but I say this, and I never like to talk about any of these personal things. I like to talk about it from that not victim consciousness, but victor consciousness, because now, I didn't mention it in October, but we're here in February, and it's gone the other way in a positive way through Ayurvedic medicine. And now ASEA is exacerbating everything that he's taking. And my mum, she's doing the 4 times a day, and
That's
she's
fantastic. I love
That
this.
is fabulous.
We made the decision for us, like, you know, for us, it was like, you know, like we have a show, right? So people would send us stuff all the time and be like, try this, try this, try this. So you were always super grateful about it, and we felt really good. But it got to the point where I think we were at 8 to 10 different supplements a day.
8 to 10 would be like understatement.
I was like, holy smokes, this is a lot. I'm like, I don't even know how to keep organized. I'm like, you know, I'm like, this is really just screwing up with my mind, right? So, but I would never stop taking any one of them because I didn't know if that was the one that would mess it up if I stopped taking it. So I kept taking all of them. So then I went and looked at this ASEA, right? And I was like, oh, let me take a look at this, whatever. So I went there and I saw Dr. Silverman. He was there. It was at a local event where we live. And it made sense to me. I was like, all right, listen, you know, maybe this is good. I'll try this out. And I got to tell you something. We literally, I would say it was like within the first week, I was like, man, I feel like I'm seeing in panoramic. You know what I mean? I was like, I felt like that. I was like, I wasn't feeling the need to take all the other stuff, right? And I just felt an overwhelming sense of well-being. So anyway, we went into that for like 3-4 months. And then we didn't want to talk about it at all, Alpa, in the show whatsoever. April was like, look, we just got to tell people there's real legit hope here. You know what I mean? We think
that was
we may
like
have found
our third month into it.
And I was like, I don't want to talk about it on the show, like again, like with the show, but then here I am. So that always ends up this way, right? So we started talking about it. And I got to tell you something, personally, I really feel like it's that concept of the med bed in the bottle. It really is. So like the concept of a med bed
that Trump could have been speaking about. Think about it, because it tastes quite, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I just think it's like what it's done is like, look, I'm 51 and I feel like I'm in my 20s, you know, physically. I mean, you know, we are primed at the top of our game professionally. I mean, spiritually, you know, it's just at all different aspects of our life. So it's just pretty amazing to see. And I really do accredit it to that, you know, and I kind of feel for what you were going through with your dad, because my daddy's 80 and I can't get him to take it because he's just conditioned in that world.
Trapped.
My mom loves it though. She's 80. She probably looks like she's 60 now, you know.
So you said she had a few health
she totally had depression, came out of foot surgery. And then when she went into foot surgery at 80, she went into a rehab facility for a month. So we're like, oh, this isn't going to end well. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? It was like, kind of, let's prepare for this one.
Was she doing the 8? The magic 8?
8, and was every single day in that rehab facility was laughing, happy. Her skin was getting tighter.
The nurses and the doctors were just
they were shocked.
This is not normal.
This is not
normal. She's 80 some years old.
And all I did is she drank that 8 ounces a day, and then I put the gel on her ankle where she had the surgery twice a day, and that was it. That was it. And she just is like, wow. And now, because you know, I always give her stuff from the show. She's always like, give me the blue and the white. That's all I want.
She's so receptive to taking it. And I actually shared your mum's story with my dad. And I have to be very clever with how I approach him, because coming from, even though both my parents, and I'm so proud of them, you know, they didn't go ahead with that. Everyone else in my family did, my brother, my sister-in-law, and all my extended family. And one thing I always thank God, and I thank my parents for listening to me. My dad thought I was batshit crazy, but he still listened. But my mum was like, well, I'm not doing it. I don't know. It's not been out, and using basic common sense, right? Because I've never been one for shots because I just don't know what's in them, right? And the doctors are never able to tell me what's in them. So I'm not doing that. Stubborn streak worked in her favor. And unfortunately, what are we witnessing, both of you, like in the humanities, everyone is doing what the media tells them to do, or they have been, right? Because there are so-called authorities in their field. So then you come and introduce a product and they go, well, are you a doctor? It's like, does your doctor even know what's in there? Just ask your doctor that. So one of my friends did, and the doctor didn't know. And I said, I can list all of the ingredients and I can tell you exactly what it does. And it just made her still go into that cognitive dissonance even further, because it's that mentality that you're not a doctor, you're not an authority. And you know what? I've come to peace with that. What we're doing is I'm the one that's like kind of last to do anything, because I need to try it first myself, and going through my own struggles, trials and tribulations. Roots was the first one that started helping me with the brain fog. I didn't know I had Lyme's and all of this, and this just been a big journey myself. But ASEA, I have to say, I've been taking it for 2.5 months. There is some emotional moments that come with this. I don't know if you can resonate, both of you, but it's like tower moments of realizations. So there's something that's working at a spiritual level, right?
Yeah, because what it's doing is, and this is what makes it so profound, and we always tell people this, like, look, if you're going to try this, don't look at it as another lotion, potion, or shake. It's not. It's an experience. Like, we don't even refer to it as a product, really. It's like an experience, right? So what it's doing is it's amplifying the signaling to the cell. So think about this from a perspective of, imagine being born in this lifetime and like you had a tank of gas, right? One tank of gas, and that gas was called redox, right? And then when you hit puberty, that gas starts to go down, which starts the aging process, starts the disease process. What you're literally able to do is to put the gas back in your engine again. That's what's happening. It really is that. And so it starts to signal the cells when there's a crisis in the body. So wherever that may be, an organ or whatever. And the next thing you know, it starts to reverse the anti-aging process, because the immune system now does its work. So people are finding that they're reversing their aging process. They're also finding that, hey, I don't have to take as much stuff. They're healing a lot faster, because wherever there's a crisis in the body, it's like completely identified, so the immune system can do its work, right? So I think that what we're experiencing with this and what we're seeing is that whatever people are taking, like whether it's Roots or whatever, we tell them to keep taking it, because there's no nutritional value to this. It's just going to make that work a lot better, because imagine taking a bunch of stuff, but there's no bus that takes it to where it needs to go. Finally, you have a bus that takes it all to where it needs to go, which is the ASEA, the REDOX, right? So that's how, you want to look at it from that perspective. So it's like, so people don't necessarily, well, I'm already taking that supplement or this. It's just a different thing. It's in a whole, like a different aisle or something, right?
It is a different aisle. It's in its own category. There is nothing like it.
Yeah. And it's not that bad. In fact, Monica was saying to me, because Alpa, I'm actually kind of liking the taste now. Is that weird? And I went,
kind of weird.
is that weird? Because it's quite pungent when you first take it. It does smell like chlorine. Right? Yeah. It's strong. And then I thought about it today, and as I was taking a shot, like I think of it like taking a shot of tequila, and because I used to dread in the beginning, but now I'm kind of aligning with what she said, because I kind of every time I look forward to taking it, and I'm like, I actually like it.
That will enhance even more.
Well,
because it'll start to even taste more like distilled water. When I first started taking it, I didn't think I was going to be able to.
You didn't?
No, it was.
She's like, I can't take it. I'd never be able to do it. I'm like, that's not.
It was really strong. Yeah. But you know what we found out a lot into it? Maybe I'm probably like 6 months into it. I never even knew. The stronger that it tastes for you is saying your body is more detoxified than you realized. And I've always considered myself very healthy. We run. I'm going to be 56. I've always taken very good care of myself. I'm juiced. I do everything you're supposed to do. but yet I couldn't barely get this stuff down. And then I realized after the fact that my body was much more toxic than I had ever realized. Now it's like distilled water. I'll never go off of it.
And tell me, because like there's been a lot going on energetically for the collective and all of that jazz. Me personally, witnessing so many different things happening to different people in my life as an empath, it kind of affects me. So I have been naughty when it comes to my eating and my diet. And if I ever did that, and if I wasn't careful with what I ate, I'd be flawed for 3 weeks. Yeah, 3 weeks to 4 weeks, even just couldn't. Sometimes I wouldn't be able to function. The brain fog would be crazy. I'm kind of eating what I want now. I'm not saying I'm crazy. I don't have a crazy junk food diet, but I like my naughties, like chocolate and things like that. But April, if I did that before, I wouldn't even be able to eat one without then being able to get out of bed.
Yes.
I've been eating what I want recently, and I can wake up and I feel refreshed and I don't feel flawed if I make a mistake. Because one of the things that I gave up for 3 or 4 years was coffee, right? No alcohol, no coffee, no caffeine, none of that up until 2021. And then I enjoy a glass of wine. I enjoy a cup of coffee every now and again. And since I've been on the trajectory of getting my health back into a better shape, there's also a mental thing that has to happen. We all have to help ourselves. Is that going back to what you said, is the key is to enjoy yourself and enjoy life and not be so pedantic as to, right, if I do this and if I do that, because I was one of those. So I wasn't really helping myself. So it's a journey of learning. And then now taking this, I am really, really grateful more than anything to see both my parents take it.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That's beautiful. We didn't know about the ASEA when my mom and dad were around. And I often think, geez, I wish we did, because I know it would have extended their life. For sure. And it's a blessing that Jay's mom takes it and you've gotten your parents to take it. That's amazing.
You know, the other benefit that's going to happen
it is extending their life force.
Well, when people start to take it too, the cool thing is that you vibrate at a very high level. So your consciousness is there. It's very hard to get into the funk after a while. You start taking it, you don't get into those pockets.
The lows.
So when you vibrate, I mean, if you take a look at whatever law of attraction or whatever people believe in, you got to vibrate. The principle is the same. Vibrate at a high level, you'll attract the goodness in your life. This does work at that level. So if you want goodness, I tell people, you know, we've talked to a lot of psychics and spiritual guides because of our show and stuff. They'll say, look, they'll be like, look, you know, when we take this, our readings are off the charts. We're much better for our clients. We have much better discernment. I mean, they're telling us this stuff. They're saying that April, they're like, hey, they can't get to it fast enough because they know they've been told whatever, right? You know, that's what they're supposed to have. They know this has been the answer.
Intuitively
like there, you know, what it's doing internally. I know it's amplifying the signaling, but there's also like, you know, it's unlocking parts of us that we don't, that have been locked. So and all of a sudden we have access to knowledge and downloads, and you know, it's a very different world. I think it's really helping people adapt well to this new way of life that we're having, this new era of life.
Well, it does, because it recalibrates you from the inside out.
Yeah.
Right. So it's recalibrating your central nervous system. It's recalibrating it's rebuilding and rejuvenating you from a cellular structure level. Right. And then that's the liquid. And then the Renew 28, the gel, this is working from the outside in. So
I love that. I put it on the skin last thing at night, first thing in the morning.
Absolutely. I do the exact same thing. I roll out of bed. I leave it literally by my bedside. It's the first thing I put on because it wakes me up. But this is radical.
For your skin. I have had my dad, who doesn't notice anything, today is like, what is your skin is looking very nice. And that's sweet. It's so sweet to hear that. But it's really gel.
This is literally radical anti-aging. Well, they're both, that's radical. The liquid's radical anti-aging for the inside, and this is radical anti-aging for the outside. But for people that are like, oh my God, I want that instant gratification. This is the instant gratification.
That'll make everybody a believer.
By the way, on the thread, Dr. Silverman said this for, you know, it has a host benefits, but for me, with the the throat chakra.
Yes.
I've only started recently, actually, and it's just opening up so many things, so many emotions, and yeah, I think I'm at this stage because look, it's been 2.5 months for me now, so I'm kind of really at the beginning, and I'm noticing a lot of emotions and things coming out, but stamina-wise and just how I sleep is so amazing. And
you know what you'll notice too, because we
Gets better
getting
and
up in
better.
a year, and I thought like, okay, well, you know, it's good. We'll hit a brick wall like everything else. You know, you'll hit that point, and you don't. You actually gets better and better and better, and
You don't hit a plateau.
You don't hit a plateau, and you literally feel like you're meeting this new version of you, like I wake up and I'm like, man, I'm in this new body. I'm like, because we work out, we run, whatever, and it's just like, oh, this just kind of feels new today. You know what I mean? And it's like, you don't feel the discomforts, and it does get better, and you feel you consistently feel a new and improved version of yourself that keeps coming to the surface.
And in terms of, you mentioned stamina, you know, Jay and I, we literally run from 5:30 in the morning until literally like the head hits the pillow at 10 o'clock at night, especially him because he's on the phone constantly all day long. We would never be able to keep up this pace in a million years if we were not on the ASEA product. It keeps us, it levels out our energy level. It sustains our energy level throughout the entire day. So it's not like you're up and then you crash.
There is no crashing.
I used to be a napper. I used to love to nap. I loved my naps. I haven't napped in 10 months. I don't even know what it's like to nap because my body doesn't need it anymore. It doesn't require
you know, Alpa,
it.
I mean, it's whether you end up doing ASEA to use it or whether you do it as a business like we do. I mean, that's on you. But what I will say, and I tell people this, is like, if you are in this phase of your life where your accumulation phases of your career, if you would, something like this is pretty critical in my opinion, because it keeps you at optimum state performance, mind, body, spirit clarity. Your downloads, the ideas you get of what you're going to accomplish, how to run your business properly, how to handle things. Is just it's totally different.
It's a game changer.
And I've been in business since I've been in my early 20s, and I feel like I know it, but this is like a next level of performance. It really is. Like we have what we do with ASEA, we have our show, we have some other consulting work that we do. So I'm, between the three of those businesses, they're different. And yet we're able to balance them out without feeling like we're overwhelmed or ones, you know what I mean? Like we don't get that. It's like you don't look at things as linear like we're stacking things on top of each other. It's like it's more added to the circle of life. And we just the rhythm of it instead of like, oh,
we never feel overwhelmed ever.
Don't feel overwhelmed.
How long has it been for both of you taking it?
10, 11 months now, right? What'd you say?
Yeah, I'm still kind of approaching my 3rd month. So I'd say, and initially I ordered it in October, but I wasn't consistent in taking it every day because the taste was disgusting. So I would like kind of put it off. And then it was around, beginning of December. And I don't know about both of you, but initially when you start taking, there's a sense of purging. An emotional purge, even a spiritual purge, your awareness. And I was consistent, but I was only doing it twice a day. By mid-January, I'd say, is when I upped it to 4 times a day. So I'm still quite at the early stages. So where you're at 10 months down the line and you're feeling that, I look forward to getting there.
It's pretty amazing. It's a real blessing.
When you look at Dr. David Silverman, you had him on your show.
He's 60.
Great.
Yeah, he's in his early 60s, and he is. You want to talk about? Well, his whole thing is living younger, longer, and he is the epitome. He is the poster child for living younger, longer. He does not look remotely his age, and he's full of stamina and energy in his mind. He's like go, 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 go.
Yeah, energetically, like there's nothing wrong with aging, and I'm not a sort of an ageist where I like look and think, oh, I don't want to age, but I think it's about how we feel in our body, and how we feel mentally, and of course emotionally and spiritually. I've been fortunate. My father, my mother, they both genetically are very, very good-looking people, and they haven't aged badly at all. Like my dad, he's 75, and I was just admiring him today, given that he hasn't been taking supplements or anything. And now I'm really looking forward to seeing what ASEA will do for him in maintaining his you know, his way. He's got such a young face still, but I think it's about how we feel within ourselves and within the body. So it's all good, very well looking young, but if you're aching and paining and hurting, it's a different thing, right? And then you're going to give out that kind of stifled energy. But look, I mean, I have really enjoyed this show. I've actually got to jump on another one in about 10 minutes. I just noticed the time. I could actually go on. This has been a really raw, spiritually raw and vulnerable show. And of course, very...
Thank you.
But no, but I always know that the divine steps in. I was saying to you both earlier, I was like, I don't know where the show is going to go, but I love where it's gone in its entirety. And that's what the blessing is in having like-minded folks, energetically, spiritually, emotionally, and from a place of congruent love. Thank you so much, April. I'm so grateful to both of you. Jay, you've been great as well. April, I'd love to have you back on the a show that I'm planning to do, but I'll tell you about that a bit later. Just so if everyone knows, all the stuff about ASEA that we spoke about is in the description box below. And also with REDOX, we're doing a 3-day special using the code LOVE25, 25% over the Valentine's period. So it ends, I think, Monica's done it for me, but on the 16th. One thing about Monica as well, she's been taking it and she's beginning to see a difference, you know, and she's like, I'm actually really loving this stuff. And she's very supportive with the journey. But yeah, both of you, Jay, April, it's just a pleasure. Oh, and if you want to find Jay and April, I've got the link right at the top of my show. Just let me know that's the right one, Spiritually Raw Live, I think. Yeah. And everything that you want to know more about all their endeavors and the things that they do. But more importantly today, I think, because you're like the hosts on all your shows. I wanted to invite you on my show for, it's like having a coffee with two friends. Or a bottle of ASEA.
Yeah, that's what you say nowadays, right? As ASEA, right? Nobody says tequila.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you very much. I don't know what's happened to my chat. It's just frozen. So I haven't, something's gone on there. But everyone, if you are here and been here through and throughout, thank you very much. And until next time, both of you, we will reconvene. Lots of love.
And lots of love. Thank you.